Hello, welcome back to Animated Literacy. This is lesson number 85 from the Story Song and Action Book. In our last lesson, we learned about the white whistling whale and how the whale likes to get into a wheelbarrow. The wheelbarrow slides down into a whirling whirlpool that's going around in circles. The whale tips it up so it's doing a wheelie. So now it's up on its one wheel and going round and round and round in circles. And if that's not enough to get people's attention, the whale takes a whistle, puts it in its mouth and goes so that it's whistling and everybody's watching and clapping. And sometimes they're even feeding the whale. So whenever we think of the white whale, we think of how this white whale likes to whirl around in a whirlpool, doing a wheelie and blowing her whistle. We pretend to hold a whistle like this, so put your fingers this way, bring your whistle up to your mouth, blow air through it, go, and then make Winky Walrus's sound. Wha. So that's one way, but not everybody makes that sound. Some people say whistle, but other people say whistle. So when I did that second time, all I did was Winky Walrus's sound. So you can either go wha or you can go wha. And either one will work to be able to read lots of words. So now, after introducing that, we went ahead and added our color picture of the white whistling whale to our chart. So you can see there are very few sounds left to learn. So if you've been keeping up with the lessons, and you are good at spelling those sounds, making those sounds, putting those sounds together, all of the books that are being read to you, you should be able to start figuring out most of the words in those books. And if you're going a little bit more slowly, that's fine too, because it doesn't matter how fast you learn to read. Reading is something that you're going to enjoy doing all the rest of your life. So if you learn a little bit more slowly and you need to take more time to learn all of those sounds and put them together, and you need more time to do the drawings, maybe in one lesson you only do one or two drawings and then you come back later and you do more drawings, that's perfectly all right. So I'll keep showing you lots of drawings, playing with lots of sounds, but the important thing isn't how fast you learn it, it's how well you learn it. Okay, so now we're going to do a little bit of playing with the sound. We started out on lesson number 1 making a chart of animals, objects, and things that make noises. And we started with a bell. So if we take the white whistling whale sound and we use our bell in the song Little Puppy, it would sound like this. Little bell, it goes ding dong ding. The whale's bell, it goes wing wong wing. Say that. Wing, wong, wing. And then if we just go down our chart, what came after the bell? This time I put that the pup goes bark. Little puppy goes bark, bark, bark. The whale's pup, it goes wark, wark, wark. The axe goes chop, chop, chop. Little axe, it goes chop, chop, chop. The whale's axe, what would the whale's axe do? Whop, whop, whomp. Little rat, he goes squeak, squeak, squeak. The whale's rat, he goes weak, weak, weak. Little drum, it goes rat-a-tat-tat. The whale's drum, it goes wat-a-wat, wat. Little star, he goes twinkle, twinkle, twinkle. The whale's star, what's the whale's star going to do? Winkle, winkle, winkle. You do that? Winkle, winkle, winkle. Little fox, he goes yip, yip, yip. The whale's fox, he goes whip, whip, whip. And finally, on this chart, the bus, what does it do? It goes beep, beep, beep. So what's the whale's bus do? Little bus, it goes beep, beep, beep. The whale's bus, it goes wheep, wheep, wheep. Now that we didn't end there with our chart, we made lots of other things too. So we had a bat. So there's several pages of our chart now that we can keep adding to all year. So here was a bat that is an animal. So what does it do? Little bat, he goes screech, screech, screech. The whale's bat, he goes wheech, wheech, wheech. But if we had the bat that's a baseball bat instead, when it hits the ball, what sound can it make? Boing! So what's that one going to be? Little bat, it goes boing, boing, boing. The whale's bat, it goes boing, boing, boing. And you can continue down through all these, and then you can get out all of your other sounds and play with all of those with the charts so that you get better and faster at working with those charts all the time. Okay, so now we're going to do some drawing for our lesson today. So let's get out our paper, get out our pens. On the count of 3, take your cap off a pen. 1, 2, 3. Turn your pen around, put the cap on the other end. Show me when you're ready to draw a whale. Now I'm going to be adding a whistle over here for the whale to blow. So I'm going to come in a little bit for my whale and make his eye, starting with a curve like this. Then I'm going to make another curve up on top of that, and then another curve inside it. So there's my whale's eye. Now this is a happy whale because he's got a whistle and he's got a wheelbarrow and he's in a whirlpool. So we're going to start underneath the eye and back just a little bit from it. I'll make a curve, come around the eye, and then curve down just a little bit, and then up for his tail. Now we're going to give him a smile, so I'm going to give him a little curve right here. Now, whales don't have steering wheels. Instead, they have fins, or some people call them flippers, and they hang down here so that he can use his flipper to steer as he's going through the water. So I'm going to give him a flipper by coming down like this, curve at the bottom, and come back up. Then let's give him a mouth so he can eat something. So let's come down here below the eye and curve around this way and over to the flipper, and then stop when you get to the flipper. Skip over the top of the flipper and then curve down, and there's his tail. Okay, now the tail is also sometimes called a fluke, and the tail is what is kind of the engine that runs the whale. So it goes up and down like this, and it pushes the whale forward while the flipper or the fin is steering the whale. Now some whales also have another fin up on top here called a dorsal fin. And in a baby beluga whale, they use that fin to break through the ice, because where they live, sometimes they're down in the water and up above is the ice, and they have to break the ice because they breathe air. Now we breathe out of our nose, but a whale doesn't breathe out of its nose. Instead, it has a blowhole up here on top of its head. So when it comes up to the surface, it can bring air in, and then it blows air out. And when it blows the air out, oftentimes you see this great big spout, and it looks like this with the water coming out and little drops all over. So you can draw the whale's blowhole there. Now, sometimes our whale likes to blow a whistle. So we're going to draw a picture of a whistle for our whale to blow. So we're going to start our whistle by making a line down this way, and I'll angle it out a little bit. Then down at the end of that line, I'm going to start a circle. But I'm not going to quite come all the way around. Before I get back to my first line, I'm going to make a line coming up parallel, and then I'm going to come down and finish that. Then I'm going to take and make a line coming straight out like this. Then I'll come back to my circle and I'll curve a little bit and then come right straight up to my other line. Now we need a hole for the sound to come out of. So I'm going to make a rectangle here. And then I'll darken in the top so it looks like you can see down into that hole. So there's my whale's whistle. Now in our story, the whale's riding in something. What's the whale riding in? A wheelbarrow. So let's draw a picture of a wheelbarrow down here underneath the whale. Let's start our wheelbarrow with a straight line here. Then let's angle back just a little bit like that. Then I'm going to come along parallel till I get right underneath where I stopped my other line, and then connect the two lines. Then here's the lip of the wheelbarrow. So I'm going to come around like this with a line. That almost looks like a bathtub or something. Now it needs a place to hold the wheel. So I'm going to angle my forward here, make a curve at the bottom, and come back up, but not quite all the way to the wheelbarrow. Then I'm going to make a long angle line finally connecting there. Now we need the wheel for our wheelbarrow. So first I'm going to make a little circle here and stop when I get back to the line. And another little circle. And now we'll make a bigger circle for the wheel. So I'll come most of the way up towards the wheelbarrow. Make a circle that comes around like this and then stops when it gets to there. Now we need something to hold the wheelbarrow up when I'm not holding it. So it needs a stand. So I'm going to start from here and angle backwards. Then I'm going to curve at the bottom, come up, and then I'll just make another line inside that one. Now we need something to push the wheelbarrow. So I'm going to make, for the handle, two lines coming up like this. Then I'm going to angle them straight out like this and put a little curve at the bottom. So there's my wheelbarrow. So now we need to put some words here so we know what it is that we drew a picture of. So let's start first. This time let's write the rhyme in a word first. Now when we're writing the rhyme, what do we have to start with? The vowel. So let's make two E's. You remember what EE says? E for Eve leaping. And then at the end, let's put an L. So now what do we have? Eel. Eel. What can you find on our page that ends with eel? Wheel. What do you think it starts with? Wh for Winky for the white whistling whale. And how do we spell that? With a W and an H. So now tie your string to the wheel. Now let's try another word. Let's put an A, leave a blank, and put an E. What does A blank E spell? A for Abe skating to the bay. Put an L between the A and the E. Now if we put A and L together, what do we get? Ale for Lizzie Lamb. Ale. Now what can you find that ends with ale? Our whale does. And what does it start with? Whale. Wh. And how are we going to spell that? With a W and an H. Now we're going to write a word that rhymes with ale. So our word has to have the same ale ending, but we don't have to spell it that way. So we're going to spell ale a different way this time. I'm going to put an A. So write an A on your page. This time don't leave a blank. Put an I right after it. What does AI spell? A. And just like we did here, we're going to put an L again. Ale. So A-L-E spells ale, and A-I-L spells ale. So now what else can you find that ends with ale? The tail. What's it start with? T. T for tickling. So put your T, put your circle around tail, and tie your string to the tail. Now, there's another name for the whale's tail. Sometimes it's called a fluke. And fluke has this rhyme in it. Make a U, leave a space, so leave a blank, put an E. What does U blank E spell? Sometimes it spells ooh, like in Lulu Moose's Loose Tooth. Now if we put a K between the U and the E, and we go Ook. Ook. What does that say? Ook. So what do we have here that ends with ook? Another word for tail was fluke. What's fluke start with? Fluke. Now leave a little bit of space here because we're going to need two letters. So here's Farley Fox fishing. What's the next sound? Fluke. Fluke. Oh, we have a lot of L's today. Lizzie Lamb. So now let's sign fluke. 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 So another name for a whale's tail is what? A fluke. Now let's write another word here. Put I. What's the sound for I? And here we're starting with our vowel again. Put an S. What's the sound for S? Is. Now this one has a T in it, but the T doesn't make any sound. So we're just going to pretend like that T's not there. And then it ends with O, and then there's another silent letter. So this one, the T doesn't say anything, the E doesn't say anything. So what do we have? Issel. Issel. What can you find that ends with issel? Whistle. What does it begin with? What? And how are we going to spell that? W H. So there's our whistle. Okay. Now let's label part of our whale. Let's start with a word here. Now this one's going to need a long line because I don't have space to put it near it. So we're going to start with an O and a U. What's the sound for OU? Ow! For the owl bumping his head. Put a T and an H. Who uses the two letters TH for their sound? The thick thorny thing. So let's put those two sounds together. Let's go ow, ow, outh. What can you find in your picture that ends with outh? A whale's mouth. What's it begin with? Mm. Now this one, we're going to have to make that line come all, it might wander all over the place here, trying to get all the way down to mouth. So there's the whale's mouth. So we have, what are our words? What's this say? Whistle, wheel, whale, tail, fluke, and mouth. And we have one more. Let's put I. What's the sound for I? I. Itching. Let's put an N. What's the sound for N? Nibbling. And if we put those together, what do we have? In. In. But we didn't draw a picture of an in. What did we draw that ends with in? Fin. What's it start with? F for fishing. So we can put around a line and connect to the fin. So then after you finish with all of those, you can put some adjectives to describe them, put some verbs to name how they can move to finish your page. So now let's put some words into a song. The song we're going to use today is The Mulberry Bush. And so here's the words to The Mulberry Bush. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go around the mulberry bush. And so here are the words. Here we go around the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush. Here we go around the mulberry bush, so early Sunday morning. This is the way we wake and stretch, wake and stretch, wake and stretch. This is the way we wake and stretch, so early Monday morning. Okay, so we went round and round the mulberry bush, and then we did some waking and stretching. So now let's see what we can do with our page for that one. The whale isn't waking and stretching. What is the whale doing? This is the way we... What's the whale have in his mouth? He's whistling. So just like we wrote on our paper, let's write the word whistle. So we're going to start with the white whale's letter pattern. And so he starts with what? 2 letters. A W and an H. What comes next? Whistle. I for Ichabod itching. What came next on our page? Whistle. Whose sound is that? Sadie Seal. And how does she spell it? With an S. Then we had that extra letter in there in whistle. So we're going to put a T, but we're not going to go T. We're not going to do anything for that T. We'll just skip over it. Whistle. Whistle. Whose sound is that? Lizzie Lamb. And then there was an extra letter at the end. Do you remember what that letter was? Sometimes the E is part of a pattern at the end, and sometimes it's just kind of there. So in this one, it's not really doing anything. This is the way we whistle, and what's he doing in the whirlpool? Spinning round and round and round in circles. So let's write spin. What's the first sound you hear in spin? S. S for surfing. Spin. P. Spin. P for painting. This is the way we whistle and spin. Oh, we've got that I again. Spin. What's it end with? In. This is the way we whistle and spin. Whistle and spin. Whistle and spin. This is the way we whistle and spin while riding in a, what are we riding in? Wheelbarrow. And I went ahead and wrote that word because that's a pretty long one. So you can rainbow right over the top. And what are you going to need to draw a picture of up at here? You're going to have what? A whale. What's the whale going to be riding in? Put him in a wheelbarrow. And what's he going to be doing? Spinning. And you can copy the word wheelbarrow from down here when you do your picture. Now it's fun on these to do more verses. So that's just one way you could sing that song. Here I did another way that you can sing that song. So you can make up a lot of verses for that. This one I wrote, this is the way we whistle and spin, whistle and spin. So I started it just like the one we just did. Whistle and spin. This is the way we whistle and spin. Only this time I put, while whirling in a whirlpool. While whirling in a whirlpool. So if you want to do that one on your own, you could draw your picture of the whirlpool and you'd still have your whale in the whirlpool. Now here's another way you could do it. And the more ways you do these, the better you're going to become at thinking up things and becoming creative. So in this one, I wrote it this way. The whale spins around in a wheelbarrow, a wheelbarrow, a wheelbarrow. The whale spins around in a wheelbarrow while blowing on a whistle. Let's try that again. The whale spins around in a wheelbarrow, a wheelbarrow, a wheelbarrow. The whale spins around in a wheelbarrow while blowing on a whistle. Now if you have our beginning workbook, then you can do a puzzle for those, and then you can make up your own verse on the back of the puzzle. So this is what one of my kids did for Around the Mulberry Bush, and I think I showed you this one before. I wish I'd kept more of their pages, but I have a few samples to show you. So here we go around the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, the mulberry bush, and these words were all out of order. She had to cut them up, put them back in the right order for the verse, and then she made up her own verse just like we're doing on the back. And she wrote on, for her verse, she wrote, here we go around the puppy dog, the puppy dog, the puppy dog. Here we go around the puppy dog so early Monday morning. So there's lots of ways you can rewrite that song. So I hope you enjoyed our drawing lesson today, and playing with sounds and writing words. In our next lesson, we'll learn another new character, and we're going to get real close to finishing up our chart of sounds. So I hope to see you then.